Hi, I'm Tom Geller, talking about my article in the October 2013 issue of Communications of the Association for Computing Machinery, titled Making the Internet Safe for Gadgets. Chances are you have one of these in your pocket, and if so, you're part of a big problem, but it's not your fault. You see, the internet was built to connect machines to each other, not people and not small portable devices. At the time, they were big, expensive machines, and we knew exactly where they were and who was running them. Well, times have changed, obviously, and that's why the National Science Foundation of the United States has been working on projects for a few years that will help to make the internet safer for small gadgets such as cell phones. The most recent iteration is called Future Internet Architectures. It was started in 2010, and several projects have passed through it. In my article, I talk with some of the people who are in charge of these projects and about what they're doing to make the internet safer for gadgets. Now, that may sound like a very big change to have on the internet's architecture, but actually the internet itself started by upending a previous network, the phone network. Here's Van Jacobson talking about it at Google in 2006.
They wrote about this. Paul in particular published this in '64 in IEEE Transactions on Communications. Utter heresy, right? Everybody who did communications, the entire staff of Bell Labs, came out and said, this can't possibly work. And they turned it on in September '71, and it worked like a champ.
But 35 years later, as he gave that talk, we could all see that the champ was pretty well battered. So he joined up with Park to create something called Content-Centric Networking, or CCN. The results were twofold. First, a protocol specification, and second, an open-source implementation called CCNX. Here's current Park Research Director Glenn Edens to talk about how we go from requesting an object on a server to requesting that object from the entire network.
You would say something like, I want the latest issue of Wired. And you would put that request out through an interest packet. And then that Wired magazine could be served either directly from the publisher, Wired's own servers, or if it had been requested previously, it might have been cached somewhere in the network. And you might actually be receiving the cached copy as opposed to the original.
CCNX was also the base for a project that got FIA funding in 2010 called Named Data Networking, or NDN. Its focus was on how CCNX could be used in real situations throughout the entire world.
The question is not about the implementation. We are not focusing on implementation. We are focusing on the architecture research and understand how this prototype implementation of the architecture can or cannot meet the actual needs that come from the real applications.
Another FIA project called Mobility First sets up a two-layer architecture that allows you to establish trusted sources for the information you want.
You can see we have an important piece called the Global Name Resolution Service, GNRS, and there's the Name Certification Service on top and the routing below. So anyone can certify a name. I can certify my own name. If someone trusts me as a person, they can communicate with me by getting that identifier. But if you say you're a car, then the name certification service could come from the auto industry. Each application domain can have its own name certification service.
Finally, we come to a project that openly acknowledges that we don't know what the internet's going to be like in the future, but it leaves space for that uncertainty. It's called the Expressive Internet Architecture Project, or XIA. Like Mobility First, it starts with the players that we already know about: hosts, content, users, and services, but then it leaves open space for new players as they emerge. As project leader Peter Steinkiste says, hosts are the past, content and services are the present, but we don't know what's in the future. The good thing about all three of these projects is that we as end users won't have to do anything to make them happen. As they spread, we'll just notice the internet getting faster and more reliable. For more information, see my article, Making the Internet Safe for Gadgets, in the October 2013 issue of Communications of the Association for Computing Machinery. I'm Tom Geller. Thanks for watching.